Now let's do decile wise lift chart. Okay. And again, we don't need any other column than what we already have. Now we have to set up a pivot table for that. So make sure that you select a cell inside the data table or the range that has the data, and then pivot table. So I'm going to put this pivot table right in here, say about there. Okay. So now in decile wise, what we are trying to do is, after having sorted the data, okay, so that's a key requirement. You have to first sort the data by the predicted price, which you've already done. So now we're going to slice the data into 10 groups from the top. So the largest value of the predicted y's are there, and hopefully that would mean the largest value of y's are also at the top. So we'll go down 10%, 10%, 10%. So we'll divide the entire list. So the number of cases are going to be divided into 10 groups. So bring in case number. So now that goes all the way from 1 through the last. So now we need to group them. So right click and group. So now here you're starting at 1 and going all the way to 16,182. So if you want 10 groups, we need the by should be 1619. Okay, a little bit larger than that. That will give you 10 intervals. So if you want 20 like in SAS, then you have to just change the by value, so make it into half of that. So then that will give you 20. Okay, so now we have the 10 groups. Now what we need to do is, again, remember, we are not going to use the predicted price. So we're going to use the actual price. So here we bring in the price. Okay, so that gives us the sum of the price. Okay, so when you have sum of the price, then we have the sum of all the prices, all the 16,182 here. So for us to be able to do the okay. So now if we want to use the sum, then what we have to do is to find what the sum of the average price will be in each of these rows. So then we have to compute average per decile, right? So this is the total. So if you divide that, so that will be like I32, right, divided by 10. So that will give you the average for each decile. So then we can do I22 divided by that average. So now we are comparing the total price within each decile with what will be the total average price will be for each decile. Make that into absolute reference. And that's the lift. Then we can copy that down there and do a bar chart. So then that would be your decile wise lift chart. Yeah. Or if we do, instead of sum, right, if we change that to average, then you don't have to set up a decile wise average separately to compute the lift. So okay, so suppose we change that from sum of price to average. So now we have, okay, average within each decile. So this is the average for this decile. So this is the average for the second decile, and so on. So in that case, our lift is going to be that divided by the overall average. So we don't need this one. Instead, we need the average of the average, which we already have right here. So our lift will be I-22 divided by I-32. Okay, make that into absolute reference. So if you do it this way, then we don't have to compute this average separately. So when you compute lift, decile wise lift, we need to make sure you understand what we're trying to measure. We're trying to compare what's actually happening to a baseline, which is the average value. Okay. So in each decile, we look at the actual average of the actual prices against the average of the entire data set. Or if you do sum, then you look at the sum of prices in each decile divided by the sum of average for that decile. So you take the average of all the prices and for that decile add the average, and then you divide one by the other. So you need to make sure that the numerator, the denominator are consistent. Some of you didn't have that consistency, and that's the reason why there were issues with your lift chart.